So there is a part of the weight loss journey that no one tells you about that is secretly sabotaging your efforts. And it has nothing to do with calories. It has nothing to do with carbs. It has nothing to do with exercise. None of the traditional things that we think are involved with getting to our goals. And this thing is probably the number one reason why 93% of traditional diets fail. So my name's Laura Jackson. I'm the co-founder of Fit Chicks Academy. I've been a part of certifying and mentoring thousands of coaches from around the world in holistic nutrition, health, and building amazing businesses. And today we are going to be pulling back the curtain on this part of the weight loss journey that no one tells you about. And it really is going to be the game changer, whether it be for your own weight loss journey or for your clients if you're a coach. So let me take you back a little bit to my own journey. So I have lost 50 pounds and been able to keep it off for over 13 years. Now, when I first started my weight loss journey, I was motivated. I was ready to change, right? And I would always start off so strong. I would be meal prepping, I would be hitting the gym, I would be doing all of the things, quote unquote, right. But then, like clockwork, and many of you could probably relate, whether it be in your own life or seen it in your clients, I would just go right back to old habits. I'd be through the drive-through on a stressful day. I would suddenly be, throwing in the towel on the weekend and just binge eating and drinking. I would be late night snacking. I'd be skipping workouts. And then I would be in that cycle of beating myself up and thinking, what is wrong with me? Like, I know I want to do this. I start off strong. Why do I keep quitting on myself? Why do I keep sabotaging myself? And this went on until I figured out what we're going to talk about today. And once I understood this, it changed absolutely everything for me. Not only did I lose the 50 pounds, but more importantly, I kept it off. And that is the goal we all want for ourselves or for our clients, is that long-term transformation. So what we're going to talk about today is going to give you some real actionable ways to do this one thing. I know I'm being a little cryptic, but I'm going to drop it about what it is. But I know how helpful this is going to be because not only did it change my own weight, but it also has helped my students in Fit Chicks Academy be able to help thousands of other clients' weight, as well as my own clients. So let's start off by talking about what people think it actually takes to lose weight. Now, if you are in the Academy, you've probably seen my stick figures a ton of time. You're welcome. And if not, please bear with my drawings. But basically, this is my simplified version of the weight loss journey. Okay, so there's where you are now, and there is the goal that you want to achieve. Now, most people or coaches think that the way to get someone to their goal is to change what they do. And I call this the method, the mechanics, right? These are the actions, the habits, the steps. So if I was to put that into, an example, it would be things like changing what you eat, when you eat, how much you eat, what your habits are that you need to have in place. Obviously, you currently have certain habits that are not getting you to your goal, and then we start implementing these changes and we move along to hitting your goal, whether it be, let's say, 25 pounds down, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever that is. Now, this is a huge mistake. Because when you only focus on the method, you are actually only focusing on 50% of the equation. Okay, as you can see, we've got another line up here. And this other 50% of the equation is the mindset. So just like we have to change our actions to get to our weight loss goal, we also have to change our mindset. Now, our mindset is essentially a combination of 5 things: your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your attention, and your identity. And as we're moving towards our goal of weight loss, right, we currently have thoughts, feelings, beliefs, what we put our attention on, and a current identity. And in order to get to our goal, we have to, just like the method, changing what's on our plate, we have to change those things to become the version of ourselves who can make this stick for the long term. Okay, so out of those 5 things, what is the most important thing that no one talks about that we need to focus on, that we need to include? That is identity. In order for us to be able to not just get to a weight loss transformation, but to really make it stick, we have to become a different version of ourselves. We have to change what our identity is. So, that being said, what is identity? Most of us don't even know the answer to this question. So, your identity is simply who you believe you are. It's a story you tell yourself about yourself. So, this is not who you want to be. This is not what others think you are. This is not who you hope you can become. It's really who you believe who you are at your core. And when I actually ask myself these questions, what I thought I believed when I sat down with my journal, I asked myself and I wrote this out, and what I truly thought about myself were two different things. And the truth is, what you have in your current life is a result of your current identity. So your identity is made up of all the beliefs, all the stories, all the labels that you have attached to yourself over your lifetime. So if you think things like, I am somebody who always struggles with weight. That was one of my big ones. I never stick to anything. I'm someone who never sticks to anything. That was another one of my big ones. I'm not a morning person. I'm not athletic. I'm not one of those healthy people, right? Those are all identity statements. And the way you know it's an identity statement is if you say the words, I am. So now, even me saying that, I want you to think, even most recently, where did you or a client say, well, I am dot, dot, dot. That is showcasing what the current identity is. And the truth is, these are not facts. We think they're facts. Like, I am shy. I am lazy. I am unhealthy, right? But they're just stories. They're stories that we've told ourselves over and over again. And that becomes who we think we are. So as we're going on this weight loss journey, we have to understand what our current identity is, but we also have to understand how the brain actually works. So our brain has one job, and that is to make sure that we survive. Okay? It is not there to make us happy. It is not there to help us thrive and do the best and live in the healthiest, best body. It really wants to make sure we just stay alive. So it wants to keep us away from things that could threaten us. Now, what is one of the biggest things that threatens our quote unquote safety is change. And what is a weight loss journey? It is change. It's change to your habits, it's change to your physical body, it's change to maybe your relationships, your environment. All of these things are starting to change. And your brain equates that to, uh-oh, something's going wrong, right? So our brain will always work to keep your behavior consistent with your identity, which is what really self-sabotage is. Every time we start moving along and we're getting somewhere and our brain suddenly says, oh my goodness, we're changing a lot of things. Go eat that cake. Don't go to that workout. It will start to have these thoughts and beliefs pop up that will pull you back to staying in your current identity. Now, I like to think of your identity, it's like your internal thermostat, right? So when you try to change the temperature, like you're trying to change your habits or your weight, really it's like now the brain kicks in. So your identity is changing. Your brain goes, we've got to set this back at, room temperature. What is comfortable for us? And then it tries to keep you in that same space. This is something that's called in psychology, it's called cognitive consistency. So really it is, again, it's just this way that your brain just wants to keep things familiar. This is why change is actually really so hard, not even just for weight loss, but for anything, because we're becoming a different version of ourselves and we're basically battling a brain that wants to keep us the same until it knows it's safe. Okay? So why does identity matter so much for weight loss? Because your identity will always override your willpower. And most of the time, when you are either coaching your clients or you're doing your own weight loss program, you are usually relying on willpower. And this is where, again, when willpower wanes, we go back to old habits. So if we just focus on the method only, let's kind of go through the timeline. So if we're coaching on the method only, nutrition, our habits, our movement, week 1 to 2, you're super excited or your client's super excited. There's a new plan. The motivation is super high, right? You're following everything perfectly. I have seen this with thousands of people. I've also seen this in my own life, right? Those first 2 weeks, it's like, yeah, but that's also when willpower is the strongest. Then around week 3 to 4, this is when you'll start to see the resistance hitting. And resistance, again, is that brain saying, let's go back to old habits where we're safe. And those old habits start to creep back in. And suddenly you're negotiating with yourself. Why not just have the extra piece of cake? Oh, well, I'll just skip my workout and go for brunch. I'm going to break those commitments that I made to myself, right? And it doesn't even feel that bad. It's just these little kind of tweaks, this little voice, right? And again, you'll see this with your clients or with yourself. And then by week 5, 6, if you have not done any identity work, you are going to be off the plan completely. You're going to feel like a failure and you're probably going to quit. And then the cycle will start again. And really, all that happened, and I want you to look at this differently now, whether it be in your life or your clients, really, it was just a battle where the old identity won. The old identity won over this identity because you have not made this new identity strong enough yet. So when we're looking at approaching this from a holistic approach, we're going to look at it from the method and the mindset. So we're going to focus on both of these at the same time. So week 1 to 2, you would be starting your new actions, but you also would be working on identity. And I'm going to give you some tips at the end of this of how to actually implement that. Then week 3 to 4, maybe 5, when that resistance hits, because it will, this is the one thing, resistance will always hit. Instead of seeing it like a failure, you're going to recognize what it is, and you're going to now be able to plan in advance to overcome those obstacles. And then as we move to, week 5, 6, 7, you're really building that new identity. And before you know it, you're here, and this version of you doesn't feel so foreign. It doesn't feel unsafe. You're now slowly moving towards it, and it's becoming who you are. And those actions, those habits now, this method becomes easier to follow, because you are pairing the two, your actions and your identity. Okay, so it's always 50-50. Now, let's talk about how do we start to change identity. This is what everyone wants. And I always think you have to really understand what identity is before you start to implement it. So how do we actually start to change the identity and rewrite the story to make it easy to get to our goals? Now, this is a simple framework that I use. I teach this inside our Holistic Nutrition Weight Loss Coach certification and other programs at the Academy, but this is kind of a simplified version to help you start to get on your way to shifting your identity or helping your clients. Okay, I love steps. So step number 1, in order to get to where we want to go, we have to know where we're starting from. So the first thing we want to do is identify what our current identity is. And this is simply sitting down with a journal and a pen. This is my favorite way to do it. You can also do it on your phone if you want, or on your computer. But ask yourself this question honestly. When it comes to my health and weight loss goal, or if you know that specific goal, like for me, when it comes to losing 50 pounds, I am someone who. And then just let your brain answer that question. Okay, so you might have heard people say things, or you might have said things, as I said earlier, like, I am someone who has no willpower around food, right? I am the big girl in the family. I am shy. We say these things like they're truth, right? Again, these are identity statements. So ask yourself who you think you are and be honest. You need a little bit of time here because, again, you're going to start to answer it at first with what you think other people think of you. And you're not going to recognize, like, yeah, I'm someone who is kind and I'm someone who is great. Yes, all those things. But peel back the layers when it comes to what your belief is about your health and about your weight and about your ability to hit your goals. Okay? Write down whatever comes up. Don't judge it. This is an awareness exercise, and we cannot change what we do not recognize. So just allow it to come up. Look at it with curiosity. Isn't it interesting that I think I'm someone who always quits on themselves? Right? Just let it all come up because we cannot change what we don't acknowledge. Okay, so we get a clear idea what our current identity is. Step 2. Now, in order to change our identity, we have to know who is this version that we want to become. You could call this your future self. You could call this your goal identity, whatever it is that works for you. But when you're thinking about your goal, and again, let's say mine was 50 pounds, or your client's goal is to lose 50 pounds, answer the question, this person, this version who has achieved this goal is someone who. So I always say there's two things I tell my students. I always say, what does that person do and what do they not do? So one of the things for me was someone who loses 50 pounds and keeps it off is keeps their commitments to themselves, is consistent, nourishes their bodies with real whole foods, puts their health as a number one priority, right? Moves their body regularly. That's what they do. But then the other flip side of that, what do they not do? Well, they don't quit on themselves. They don't allow people to push their boundaries or feel that they have to people please in order to reach their goals. So many things came up for me. They don't binge eat on the weekends. They don't drink bottles of wine and make excuses. They don't. So answering those two questions, what do they do and what do they not do, can be so easy and beneficial, right? To bring about what that goal identity is. And as you write that down, this is who you are going to become. Okay, so make sure it feels aligned for you. Again, you're not answering what you think you should be doing, but what is your goal identity? What does that version of you feel like? What do they think about? What do they believe? What do they do? What do they not do that has reached their weight loss goal that feels so easy and good? Okay, now here's the really powerful part. Step one, we know where we currently are. Step two, we know where we're going. And now we have to look at the difference between the two. Okay. And this is the plan. This gap, that's where all your self-sabotage lives. That's where all the resistance comes from, right? But the good news is you don't have to bridge this gap overnight. This is why I'm not a huge fan of positive affirmations because, it's very easy to say, like, keep saying these mantras over and over again. But when they don't feel true to you, they're not effective, right? If you're like, I remember for me, I'm like, my current identity is I'm unfit and I'm unhealthy and I hate my body. But my goal identity is I'm fit and I'm healthy and I love my body. But me just thinking I love my body, it felt fake, right? And so this is where we can bridge this. And this is where we would create something like a becoming statement. Okay, so now we know who we are, where we want to go. And now, whatever this person does, this version of you, that is going to be your becoming statement. So you don't have to say, I am someone who always keeps commitments to myself, right? You add in the word either becoming or I'm learning. And this takes the pressure off the brain. The brain doesn't go into high alert danger mode thinking, oh my gosh, you're about to change everything, right? Feel the difference between I am someone who always keeps commitments to myself from I'm becoming someone who always keeps commitments to myself, right? So what we're doing, it's giving you permission to be in the process. So all of the characteristics that your goal identity has, these are the things that you are going to put into your becoming statements and you're going to write them down. I am becoming someone who keeps commitments to myself. I'm becoming someone who nourishes my body with real whole food. I'm becoming someone who moves their body every day. I'm becoming someone who has boundaries, right? I'm becoming someone, fill in the blank. This is your new identity. And that's what you put on your wall so you could see that every single day. And that is what we start to practice to move towards this goal while we're also changing our habits, right? Think about how much easier it is to actually eat a delicious, nourishing meal of real whole foods when you are thinking, I am becoming someone who nourishes my body with real whole food, who makes my health a priority, right? You're lining up your thoughts and your identity with your actions. So then once we've done that, then what we want to do is start to collect daily evidence. So we want to start to really drive this home to your brain that yes, this new identity is who we're becoming and this is where we're going. So our brain loves evidence because again, the more evidence that we collect, the more it goes into our safety bank where our brain's like, oh, okay, we've done this. We're doing it again. I like this. It's safe. Okay, great. You're collecting proof for that version of you. And small actions consistently create the evidence for a stronger identity. But you have to bring them into your awareness. So some little hacks would be, every time you do a habit that's in line with the person that you're becoming, you are going to say your becoming statement afterwards. But sorry, not your becoming statement. You're going to say your I am statement because you're proving to yourself. So let's say that you are becoming someone who moves their body daily, and then you start going for a 5 minute walk. So many times we put so much pressure on ourselves to go to the gym for 60 minutes, and if not, it's not a workout. Literally, if you go for a 5 minute walk, then you say to yourself after you've done that, I'm someone who moves daily. 5 minutes, a 5 minute walk every day is still moving your body daily. Then we can expand on that. But really, what we're doing here is we're rewiring. Okay. So let's say that you drink a liter of water or you drink a glass of water before you have your coffee, even. I'm somebody who hydrates myself, right? Bring it into the awareness because then those habits become effortless. You cannot wait till you feel like this version of yourself. You have to start doing this as a conscious practice, and then it will become an automatic habit. Okay. So step 5 is to now anchor it in your environment. We have to also set up our environment for this new identity. So many times we are trying to live a new you in an old space. And that is one of the quickest ways to failure. And, it might be your clothes. It might be your the way that you show up in the morning. If you get up grumpy versus get up happy, even your internal environment shows in your external environment. But one of the biggest thing for me was clothes. I would always be in these oversized, dirty old sweatshirts, and I just didn't feel good in them. So it's not like I got super dressed up, but I started wearing, I found some really cute athleisure that I loved, and then I started wearing that instead. And I felt different immediately. So we want to change what we see every day, what we hear, and what we experience. Get rid of the things that are not in line with your new identity. That might be podcasts, that might be social media people you're following. It might be your clothes, it might be things in your fridge. It might be sticky notes putting up sticky notes to remind yourself of where you're going, right? What do you need to get rid of and what do you need to add that anchors in this new identity? And it will make it so much easier to do. And the last step that I want to say, which I always think is really important, is setbacks. You'll start doing this and you're going to feel completely different. Or you start doing this with clients and you're now suddenly seeing more compliance, huge changes, all this awesomeness. And then they hit an obstacle, which will happen. It always happens. This is life. It's normal. But again, we think weight loss is this straight line journey that we're just moving along with the mindset and the method, when in actuality, it looks like this, right? Obstacles, setbacks. It's how we come back. So also think of it, like I said earlier, whenever we fall off, a lot of times it's our old identity fighting to stay alive. I think of it like the Wicked Witch of the West, like I'm melting, right? It's not that this old version of you is a worse version of you. It's just a different version of you, right? And conscious change requires effort. So this version wants to stay alive. It doesn't want to melt down into a puddle. But this is where when you hit that obstacle or when that old identity starts to show back up and you're like, I'm back in old identity thinking or actions, right? Just say to yourself with compassion, I know you're scared. I know you're my old identity. I know you're scared. I know we're becoming someone new. And this is part of the process, and you are safe. Now, I know that might sound a little woo-woo for some of you, but honestly, we are very complex human beings. And this really helps us step in and know that we are going in the right direction. Okay, so give yourself compassion and just know every time you have a setback, it's not that it means that you're not going to get to your new identity. It doesn't mean you're not going to get to your goal. It just means this version is popping back up and they just need to know that things are changing and that's okay. Okay, so that is our 6-step identity process. Now, if you are a coach or an aspiring coach, listening to this really can be a game changer for your coaching and for your business. And if you are doing this for yourself and you want to hire a coach, make sure that they are including identity work in their coaching because, again, it is something that will make your results so much easier and so much more sticky. So you're not struggling on this weight loss journey over and over again. But weight loss is not a straight line. It is this wiggly map. But just remember, if you could shift your identity, then you will become this version of yourself who weight loss is effortless and you could do it for life. So I've included the link below if you want to get some more information about our community and where we dive in and talk a lot more about this. And I cannot wait to see you in the next video.